Imagine you are sitting in a car park late at night. It is raining. In the distance you see a man under a street light. He's talking to someone you can't see. You wonder if anyone else is there. Maybe he's just a crazy guy talking to the dark. As you ponder, you realize he's gone. You suddenly hear rustling in your back seat. You don't want to turn around. You may be looking through the spooky window.
Okay, welcome guys to the first episode of Spooky Window. My name's Belle.
And I'm Tom.
And together we have been enthusiasts, I guess, for conspiracy and
that's a good way to put it, yeah.
the paranormal. We've both been massive fans of that, and we have spent so many late nights chatting about this amongst ourselves, and we decided that
lots of YouTube videos.
Yeah, lots of YouTube videos and lots of podcasts and lots of
random research.
And we decided that we would start a podcast talking about the stuff that we're interested in and that we hope you guys are interested in. And, yeah.
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
So this first episode, we want to talk about something that Tom had actually brought up months ago.
The Egyptian obelisk found in Redcliffe.
Yeah. So we're going to start with that and we'll go from there. Basically, we're going to see how we go. This is the first episode, so it's a bit of a test, I guess.
Test run.
Enjoy.
See how it goes.
So the first thing we want to talk about was this Redcliffe obelisk. So this story started kind of as a word of mouth thing or something that you had seen on the internet previously.
Yeah, a long time ago. Probably about 14 years ago now, so a long time ago.
Yeah, and Tom had brought it up and we have been trying to find the original source of it and cannot find it.
I think it's gone. I think it used to be an Angel Fire website that I read it on first.
Angel Fire. Oh God, that's going back.
Yes, which is just, not existing anymore pretty much.
So it may not be a true story. It may be true. We don't know.
But it fits in with a lot of the ancient Egyptian artifacts that have been found in Queensland in this area as well. So it fits it fits everything else that's happening around here. So.
Yeah, this is what piqued our interest. This story. So this account goes back to when there was sort of farmland in Redcliffe. Where we're from, it was a mix of like health spas and farmland. And the story starts with this farmer trying to clear some land for his livestock or his crops. And he came across this clearing as he was chopping down trees. And in this clearing, he sees this big stone obelisk with
there's a bunch of scarabs scattered around it as well, carved scarabs.
Yeah, it was really weird. So from there, you've got two versions. One is that the farmer stopped work and called the authorities, and officials from the museum came and took it away, which would mean that there is a strange, undocumented and unresearched obelisk collecting dust in the archives.
Some description.
Which is not uncommon. They find crap in museums all the time. They're like, oh, this has been here for 100 years, and we didn't realize.
They go through their storage every now and again.
Yeah.
So that's weird stuff.
So the second is that the farmer didn't see any value in it and destroyed it.
Which, to be honest, I can understand his point of view.
He was just like...
He wants to get his work done. If you're a farmer, you've got, only a certain number of days before you can till that field or the land or use it. So if there's something in your way, it's like, well, tough luck.
Yeah.
I need to do what I've got to do.
Yeah, and I mean, the same ending, it's lost to time, so we don't know.
Yeah, so either way, there's very little to go on.
There's very little to go on, but the thing that piqued our interest about it is it sounds weird, but the more you look into it, there is a lot of weird Egyptian stuff that has been found in Australia, and it's debated. A lot of people say all of it's hoaxes, some people say all of it's true, but there is nothing concrete.
Yeah.
So we wanted to talk today sort of about these out-of-place artifacts, whether they actually exist, and if they do, whether it's possible that the Egyptians came to Australia before the Dutch and the French and the British eventually.
Which would be interesting.
It would be interesting. I don't think it's like Like it's not like it's couldn't have happened.
Yeah, I think there's a, anything's possible sort of thing. You had the Chinese walking around in 1421 with their world fleet.
Exactly.
So you don't even know about that. There's supposed to be a Spanish galleon on Stradbroke. That's another story.
Stradbroke Island. Yeah, there's weird stuff. Australia was not this. I don't think it was this place that no one knew about. I think people found it and went, oh no. So the Red Cliff Obelisk story was something that you came up with, Tom. Well, you didn't come up with, you found.
I found it a long time ago and tried to find it again, but haven't been able to find it since.
So what do you think about it?
Actually, when I first heard about it, because I was back in high school, I used to spend every couple of weekends walking through the bush in Redcliffe looking for I don't know, traces of it, I guess.
It would be really cool if you found a scout and be like, aha!
I was about 14 at the time, so, very optimistic, I guess.
You tried.
So, but, I think, it could be anything. I don't know anything about it apart from the story that I heard.
And that's what really piqued the interest of everything. But there's a couple other stories we wanted to talk about. One was
the Gimpy Pyramid.
The Gimpy Pyramid is very interesting.
Gosford Glyphs, which is probably a hoax, but
almost everything that you find when it comes to Egyptian anything in Australia is generally considered a hoax because
which is
fair enough. Okay, fair.
Okay, that's pretty reasonable.
Yeah, but
some of it is a bit strange, and some of it's very coincidental.
Yeah,
there was that coin that they found in the ground on a Aboriginal trading area where they used to walk across, and they said, some settler must have buried it while he was digging a fence or something. 100 years ago. I was like,
is that really what happened?
So,
or you just...
What do you mean? He brought it to Australia and then had it in his pocket or something, just dropped it on the ground while he was digging a fence?
What?
And then he left, and then the fence fell apart and went to time, and then somebody else dug it up 100 years later.
It just doesn't seem to make sense, does it? No. Well, the first thing I do want to talk about is the Gimpy Pyramid, which is... I don't even think it exists anymore. I think they got rid of it since they did the last highway upgrade.
Really? They got rid of that thing?
I think so. I don't know.
Because even if the, official story is to be believed, it's a
tourist destination. Leave it there.
Not just a tourist. It's still a historical thing because there's supposed to be those Italian settlers built a special little farm there. That's what it was.
So
That's history right there.
I'm not sure. This is Australia. We don't like our own history. We
true.
have a history of destroying our own history. That's just Australia true. In a nutshell. Let's be honest.
Buggeroja.
Let's just destroy anything from the lot that's not 30 years old or older. All right, so the Gimpy Pyramid. The official story of that is that Rex Gilroy discovered a terraced pyramid in 1975 and claimed it was proof that the Egyptians had arrived much earlier than the Europeans, creating it for their mining operations in the area. Now, point is, Gimpy has gold?
Yeah.
Yeah, Gimpy has gold. So
gold rush there.
There was a gold rush in Gimpy. So it that makes sense.
If they're going to sell anywhere, they sell the gold. So
yeah.
That's where they go.
It's gold. Gold's useful. Rex used the local myths and legends, including the ones warning travellers to avoid the area, and a specific non-native species of cactus. And he also said that there was a statue that was known as the Iron Man was also found in that area.
Is that the stone monkey thing, or is that something different?
I think it is. I was struggling to find things that was easily to tell what it is. I think it is. It's like this statue that's made of iron, and there is a museum where it's said, and you can see it.
Okay.
But I don't think the pyramid itself is there anymore.
Because there's supposed to be a bunch of stone monkey sort of things where they're squatting sort of thing.
Like crossed arms.
And people who like the Egyptian theory say that it's Thoth in his baboon form. But what I think it sounds more like is a statue of Tippergargan, So one of our Glasshouse Mountains.
Yeah, like one of the mountains here in north, sort of between Sunshine Coast and Brisbane.
Yeah, so southeast Queensland.
There's a set of mountains which are heavily steeped in the Aboriginal culture there, and one of them, I would know what of a lie, looks like a gorilla.
Yeah, my dad always called it the squatting monkey.
It's the Monkey Mountain.
Gorilla, so
it was called the Monkey Mountain.
Exactly, that's what everyone called it, because it looks like a monkey squatting down.
So
you've got all these historical carvings that somebody did around this area of a squatting monkey, or at least that's what we see it looking as. It could be some sort of totem of Pibrigargan because because he's a part of a flood myth over here. So flood myths are all over the world, and we've always been worried about protecting ourselves from floods. It could have been some anti-flood totem or something the Aboriginals used.
Exactly. Rex Gilroy used all these information about the cactuses, the pyramid itself, which was terraced, which is kind of more like the Mayan pyramids, not the Egyptian pyramids. It was terraced in that kind of way. And he used these statues and said, no, this is Egyptians. They came here, however many years ago, and they settled to use to mine, and then they went away. But there was also a researcher by the name of Anthony G. Wheeler argued that it was more likely to be used as an agricultural terrace by the Italian farmers that had emigrated in the area in the late 1800s or early 1900s. And then you have another thing from researchers like Marilyn Pye, who point to the design of the pyramid and the non-native cactus, which is, I can't remember what cactus name it is.
I'm looking at it now.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the cactus. Is proof that there was a Chinese settlement, specifically the Ming Dynasty, because the style of that pyramid structure was commonly used as observation platforms to oversee new lands. So they could have used it as like an observation deck. The generally accepted theory is that it was a natural land formation and then was manipulated by the settlers. So going along Anthony Wheeler's argument, for agricultural purposes. But the mystery of Gimpy Pyramid itself isn't the pyramid, but the fact that there's so much variance in sort of historical academia where some people are like, well, it could be Egyptians, and then there are people at the other end just going, there is no possible way that Egyptians could have ever gotten here. Yeah. Which is kind of like, but is it a hard no though?
And then someone else reckons that it's, Chinese, so
yeah,
you got that as well.
And I think the most interesting thing about that, and I mean, it's probably the Italian immigrants. It's probably the agricultural
That sounds more likely.
Like, they know more and they have got more proof than what we can find that's filtered down through articles on the internet.
But it sounds like there used to be something there.
There was something there.
Some sort of building.
And there was enough there to spark a debate that couldn't get resolved for a very long time.
And it seems that nobody else really looked into it, so do some research, do some experimentation on the side, like actual archaeological stuff on the side.
But I wonder if they couldn't, because it would have been protected land as well. This is the problem with a lot of stuff that's found in Australia. Well, not a problem, but one of the things that we have to deal with.
Worried about back in those days?
I don't know. Well, maybe. In the 70s. And then, it was discovered in the mid-70s, but it might have been, was it the 80s or 90s that they started really looking into it? Maybe they couldn't by that point because it was protected land. And that's the thing. In Australia, you can't touch a lot of the old land and all the things that you discover, regardless of its origin, because a lot of the area is protected. A lot of Australia is just vast, protected bushland. Like, that's why there is not there's only the small, huge centres of population like in the cities, because it's either unusable, grazing land, or protected. So it's interesting, isn't it?
There's another one that reckons Elaine Brown, a Gimpy historian, reckons that it was a terraced structure constructed by a Swiss horticulturalist in the late 1880s. So not Italian, Swiss.
Yeah, so everyone's got theories, but no one's got an answer, which is, I guess, history 101.
Yeah.
It's all theories, but it's not
theories.
interest. Well, the other one I wanted to talk about was the Gosford Glyphs, which we looked at just recently.
Yeah, just before.
just before we started recording, because it was one that we hadn't had a chance to look into until this afternoon.
So the big thing that seems to be against that being real is that it's built on sandstone, which erodes very quickly. And so they claim that the hieroglyphs are 4,500 years old. Doesn't really hold up much scrutiny when you think of the geological realities of that location.
Anyone who knows sandstone knows it doesn't last very long. So the Gosford Glyphs, there is another name for it, but I cannot pronounce it because it is not. It's an Aboriginal name. Koldari or something. I'm not going to try and put that. I just feel like I'm going to butcher that. They were discovered again in 1979 by a man called Alan Dash. He was a local surveyor who had been frequenting the Gosford area.
Carry on, hieroglyphs.
Carry on? Oh, yeah. There we go. He had been frequenting the Gosford area for several years, and he continued to research them for 5 years afterwards. They're two big walls of sandstone that are about 15 metres long and 3 metres high, and they're a mix of Old Egyptian and Middle Egyptian hieroglyphs that are more illustrative than sort of alphabetical, whatever the other ones are. He did note every time he went back to look at them that there were more every time he went back, and I'm not sure whether that's because he found more or that there were fresh ones.
True.
It doesn't say.
It doesn't say very much.
It doesn't say about it at all.
What a problem with a lot of these things is that the records of like what actually happened, and it's usually like 2 or 3 people who say what happened, and they're
not very good at telling the story.
They're not very specific. They're fairly vague a lot of the time.
And a lot of them are old, so it's not like they had the advent of the internet and easy to get photos. Like a lot of it's analog or would have been lost. But the glyphs depicted animals, boats, stickmen, and a mention of 2 kings. One was Khufu, which is the second Egyptian king of the 4th dynasty, and the other one they can't figure out what king it was. But also that Anubis, the Egyptian god, the underworld, was featured as well. So they had a few things that they were like, oh, this is Egyptian. So there was an Egyptologist, Ray Johnson, claimed to have transcribed the hieroglyphs and proposed that they mark the burial site of, excuse my butchering of this name, Lord Nefertiru, who had died from a snake bite at the site while journeying with his brother Nefertizeb. I'm going to get so much trouble for butchering these words. So that was what people thought it was for a while. And then in 1983, David Lambert, who was a rock art conservator for the National Parks and Wildlife Service, claimed to find clean-cut hieroglyphs that were less than 12 months old. And since that, alongside the fact that, like Tom said, it was sandstone and the carvings...
So it would have been easy to carve it into there?
Yeah.
But it wouldn't last very long.
And it wouldn't last very long. There were Aboriginal pictographs in the same area that were dated to be 250 years old that were a lot more eroded on the same type of stone. So people have sort of thought that maybe it was a bunch of high schoolers that just sort of did it as a hoax, copied it out of their school books because a lot of the hieroglyphs...
What were the carvings that were 250 years old?
There were ones nearby that were, it didn't say what ones, but they were Aboriginal pictographs because that area in Gosford is quite, it's known for that.
Okay.
And they were more, the ones that were definitely 250 years old were more eroded than...
Yeah, because they would be.
They would be, like, these ones are pretty new by the looks of it.
That's what, sandstone.
Sandstone work.
That's probably why it's so easy to carve into it, because it just falls apart.
So it's been widely made. People have gone, no, it's definitely a hoax, but it does not stop amateur Egyptologists going, no, they're authentic because of this and this king and this part. saying that it meant that Egyptians had been here for 4,500 years.
Oh, it'd be cool if, we weren't sure if he was saying that when he came back, new ones appeared, or that he found new ones as he explored the area more. If it was the former where he was finding more, then maybe he stumbled upon some sort of communication site for some sort of, secret society or something.
Oh, could you imagine if it was a secret society or a cult?
Yeah, exactly. So they're doing little communications there, telling their story in
pseudo Egyptian.
Pseudo glyphs, their own special language that seems Egyptian,
but it's not.
To stop others who don't know what it is. If you know, sort of thing.
Yeah, I do know. One of the theories for these ones was that the tomb of Tutankhamun was found in the 1920s, and so there was this huge thing where people were obsessed about Egypt, and so the theory was that a soldier that had returned from Tutankhamun's tomb from working there had decided to do the same thing in Australia as a fun thing, which is also entirely possible.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the prevailing one pretty much, isn't it?
Yeah, that someone was just
some guy
just was having fun.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the hieroglyphs are backwards and upside down. And it's
just like the only bit of evidence that attaches those pharaohs to the construction of the pyramids.
Yeah.
But that's another story.
Yeah, so, but there's been all along, is it just the coast, the East Coast? But this scarab was found everywhere.
It seems to be mostly the East Coast, which makes sense because there's more people here.
Yes, and it's the easiest way, if you actually track how you would probably go, I think, I don't know, I could be wrong with this, but wouldn't it?
If you landed around Cooktown, that sort of area, then you sort of go either that way into Northern Territory or down, I think.
Yeah, and they've
not so much the other way.
Yeah, so I'm not sure. I am not a seafaring person. I don't know, but maybe it could be possible. We know the Egyptians built boats. What's to say that they didn't build boats that could be actually seafaring and just go, screw it, we'll find somewhere to go and find it? They could.
Egypt.
Just end up in Egypt. Did they go to Egypt or did Egypt find us? Which way did it go?
True.
And I don't think it's entirely impossible, considering that we're told constantly how technologically advanced at the time Egyptians were. Why would it then be impossible for them to become seafaring?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff we don't know about them. So, there's the whole idea of, construction of the pyramids, which is a thing in itself, but we'll go with it. So, Egyptians built that. So then, talking about, how they could have built that, trying to use, the stuff that's there. But, if you think about it, we use cranes and stuff for skyscrapers to build those, but we don't leave the cranes at the skyscraper afterwards. We take it away for other projects. So why are we searching, the skyscraper ruins for the tools of how we built those skyscrapers?
Yeah, true. Very true. It's all just really fascinating, and like I said, the fact is,
the point of that is we have no idea what
we have no idea. We have no idea what we're capable of. We have no idea what ancient people were capable of. We can just assume from what's left behind. Could you imagine if something happened and we lost all history tomorrow, and then in 2,000 years someone sits and finds a flash drive? What the hell are they going to do with the flash drive? Our entire knowledge could be on that flash drive.
Yeah, I have no idea.
And they'd just be like, this is a toothpick. You have no idea.
They're trying to use it for what they can use it for.
Yeah. So it's one of those things where it's we don't know.
The necklace thing, a totem with kind of like a Rick and Morty USB. It's got Rick and Morty there, or Rick. It's this was a...
This is a totem.
This was a
for the pickle god. But even in saying that, the other fact is that Australia in itself we already know that the Dutch discovered it and decided not to live here. The French discovered it, decided not to live here. Then the British discovered. I'm saying discovered as in like
they found it.
They thought they found it, and it doesn't just mean that they were the only people that did that. You know, people were looking all over the world. People were in boats for hundreds of years, and you know, people that have lived near the water have always had vessels to be on the water. What's to say that they didn't go further than what we think? We don't even know the depths of the ocean. We don't know what's under there. We don't know anything. Yeah,
we don't know as much as we want to think we do.
And even if it's not that, what would be really cool is the thought that because Australia is such a melting pot, I remember that term being used when I was in school. It's like, oh, Australia's a melting pot and blah, blah, blah. This is like early 2000s Australian education. All the different cultures that had immigrated. And that was something that we did celebrate at the time. And I think to an extent, we still celebrate today.
Yeah, definitely.
And regardless the messiness of Australia's history, there have always been different cultures, different people, different things brought in here. So whether things were different cultured immigrants coming in, or whether they had, say, someone had gone to Egypt, grabbed something and lost it here, or whether someone was inspired by something else. It's just very interesting how everything's connected. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, another thing just with that is that, you know, we know the Aboriginals here were in contact and training with the
Torres Strait Islanders?
Well, like
Indonesians, yeah.
So, like, they could have, way back then, you know, Egyptian trades with somebody nearby, that person trades with somebody nearby there, Silk Road sort of thing all the way down to those people, to the Egyptian coins and that sort of thing. And they trade with that. Everyone said, hey, look, it's pretty shiny. I like that. Give that to me. And they get that.
Yeah, that's
and
also
then it ends up
possible.
here.
It's interesting how it's just as soon as they find something that's very old and not from around here, they immediately say it's a hoax, when it's like, well, there are many, many ways that could have gotten here. And it doesn't mean that it doesn't mean the Egyptians were here, but there is definitely a way that their wares could have gotten here.
There seems to be a lack of investigation into these artifacts.
It would be interesting to know if it's because they can't or they won't.
Or they might have to accept that there's some things that they don't know as well, or that some things they think might be wrong.
Yeah, and there's things that just academia might just have to, you know, take a slice of humble pie and sort of go, we might have been incorrect in this assumption.
Yeah.
I don't know if they'd ever be able to do that.
Academia, like historians and stuff like that, should be like par
and
course. That should be part and parcel of the normal thing. Like, okay, trying to actively find out if they are wrong, rather than insisting that they're right. Which, I mean, yeah, okay, it could be a hoax. It probably is a very trivial, average event that occurred for that coin to end up there. But let's find out what that was.
Yeah. How did that happen?
Silence us and the critics and investigate.
Instead of just going, it's not real. Well, dude, it's there. It's obviously real. Something happened. Figure out why.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, we would love to know what you guys think about these police artifacts. Is everything that we find in Australia from ancient cultures, are they all hoaxes? Do you think they came here genuinely direct from the cultures themselves, or do you think they were passed down? We would love to know what you think. Please remember that if you like what you hear, share our podcast with your friends. We would love to make this a semi-regular thing, and we'll catch you guys in the next podcast.
Hey.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to The Spooky Window. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at The Spooky Window. If you have any comments or suggestions or anything, we would love to hear from you. Until then, have a great day. Happy listening, and we hope to hear from you again soon.